Hey, how's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today I've got 5 wide receiver targets to buy for Week 4 fantasy football action. We've still got the Monday night game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys to be played here. Obviously, this video is going up Monday morning. But how about Week 3? I mean, what a weird turn of events and just shocking performances. I mean, a lot of players that were week-over-week producers early on this season had some dud performances. There was a real lack of scoring in those 12 o'clock window games. And then we had everything between the Rams just shell-shocking the Buccaneers. It was a weird week for fantasy football and just the NFL in general. So I'm looking forward to Week 4 here and trying to capitalize on these trade targets. But as always, if you guys have any questions or comments regarding your individual fantasy teams and leagues, drop those down in the comment section below. I'd be happy to help all of you out and get back to you with a reply as soon as possible. With that being said, drop down, give today's video a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and let's hit that intro and get straight into our first must-buy receiver. Alrighty, here we go. Kicking things off with Scary Terry McLaurin. Had a tough game against the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Washington football team was expected to play a much tighter game, but Josh Allen basically just took the show over here and wiped them off the map. 5 total touchdowns for Allen. And Terry was a player I expected to struggle a bit this week. Tre'Davious White has been one of the toughest matchups for opposing fantasy wide receivers here through the first 2 weeks. So heading into Week 3, I was a bit concerned. I expected some shadow coverage from Trey White. And it was a fairly quiet outing for McLaurin, especially after what he did to James Bradberry on Thursday Night Football last week and the New York Giants. 4 receptions, 62 yards was all that McLaurin could net here. But let's be honest, he is one of the best route runners in the National Football League. We saw how dang good he was, again, in a tough matchup the week prior. I'm not worried about Terry McLaurin now. I think that heading forward, we're going to see him continue to produce. His ceiling is sky high, and just because of the caliber football player he is going to get back on track and put up very quality numbers for us. The rest of the season, don't panic on Terry, but if you can go out there and afford to make an offer, this is a top 12 wide receiver for the entirety of the season that you could go out and make an offer for and potentially acquire for your teams. Calvin Ridley. Now, this is a player who hasn't necessarily laid up duds for us to start this season, but the ceiling that we saw in 2020 certainly hasn't flashed yet this year. 8 or more targets every single week through 3 weeks here for Calvin Ridley in this Falcons offense. Just 1 touchdown pass, or 1 touchdown reception. That number needs to go up. This Falcons offense is scoring at an embarrassingly low rate based on the points that they've given up, especially in Week 1. Now, Week 3 was a bit of a dogfight, a low-scoring matchup, 17-14 win over the New York Giants. But this football team is going to have to produce more points. They're going to have to produce more yardage. They're going to have to, overall as an offense, become more efficient and more effective. Calvin Ridley is the best playmaker on this roster. Now, Kyle Pitts is ascending. He has flashed really nice talent. He should have had a touchdown reception in the end zone against the Giants, in my opinion, but a terrible pass interference violation from the defense just dragged him down in the dirt and didn't allow that to happen. But Ridley is going to have to start putting up numbers here. He is a proven wide receiver 1. He was fantasy's wide receiver 4 overall in 2020. So he's shown us in the past he can get the job done. I am not concerned about him here. Again, he has flashed a very safe floor through the first 3 weeks of the season. 8 or more targets is a great marker to be at through the first 3 weeks. And if you can continue that success week over week here and just either find the end zone more or create more explosive plays downfield, this should be a blossoming fantasy situation, and hopefully as the Falcons offense hopefully finds more of a groove, he should be able to get those numbers more frequently and produce those higher end upper echelon fantasy stats that we've all been waiting for and obviously drafted him as here. Hollywood Brown, so as I called him this week, Butterfingers Brown. 7 targets, 53 yards, and easily let 2, I'm not going to call them locks to be touchdown receptions, but they were almost shoe-in touchdown plays, go straight through his hands, blatant drops. Now, Hollywood has shown us that he's taken the leap in terms of route running and separation from the 2020 season to the 2021 year. But man, those were killer. I mean, his fantasy outlook would look entirely different. And it's not like it was contested, like the defensive back was right there to knock the ball out of his arms. He just straight up dropped the football, like through his hands in an open, outstretched play on the first one. And the second one, he ran some sort of like a comeback route and was about to stop right before the end zone and then probably just backpedal in for the score. And he drops that one as well. So We need Hollywood to come up with these plays. I don't want to keep calling him Butterfingers Brown here, but we're talking about a potential number one wide receiver in an offense who has flashed the ability to get open and find immense separation week over week here for 3 straight games this season. So I'm very confident in Marquise Brown's ability to find space, beat defenders, get open, and have the football be thrown his way. It's just a matter of catching the football. It's an easy fix. It's honestly more mental than it is physical, I believe. And I think that, Hollywood should bounce back here. The one concern would be Rashad Bateman's eventual return, but the way Marquise is playing right now, I don't see Lamar Jackson stopping throwing him the football. Now, there might be more targets diluted and spread out across the board. When their first-round pick this year, Rashad Bateman does hit the field, but Hollywood's ceiling is so great. I mean, he can score in one touch because of his speed and ability to make plays after the catch. I'm not worried about him here. This might be one of the easier targets to go out and acquire for your teams just because he doesn't necessarily have that big name status right now that might make players a little bit less likely to or less willing to trade him. A.J. Brown, his wide receiver 1 stock is plummeting at the moment. Out with a hamstring injury early on in that Titans-Colts football game. Look, it's been a shaky and rocky road to start the 2021 campaign for him, and it looks like he's got a little bit of a Julio Jones-itis, if I do say so, because all of the fears and worries I had for Julio Jones are bouncing right back and hitting A.J. Brown square in the face. The hamstring issues that Julio Jones has been plagued with the last 2 seasons, well, A.J. Brown's out with a hamstring injury now. A.J. Brown's also had a lot of drops to start this season, which has been a little bit disappointing to see. 2 weeks ago, so in week 2, he had 9 targets and only 3 receptions. This week, he only had 2 targets on the game and then was ultimately ruled out. What I'm betting on here is the player. He has the connection. He has the trust from his quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. There's going to have to be some element of patience because at the end of the day, we don't know how the time frame or the timetable is going to look like for A.J. Brown's return. There's a chance he comes out and plays week 4, but maybe we don't see him until week 5 or 6. I would rather they wait and have him be 100% healthy. And if that's the case and we find out news about that injury timeline, that might make it easier to go out and trade for him because if players know he's going to miss games, they might just choose to move him out of their lineups, for a player who can provide them assets and production in those weeks when Brown wouldn't be there. So there's definitely an avenue here to go out and get yourself a wide receiver 1. He's got the incredibly high ceiling. I mean, we're seeing a player in an offense that I expected to have a low passing volume offense this year, going out and feeding him and Julio 8 and 9 targets each on a per game basis. So it's going to be a matter of AJ getting healthy, getting his head right, getting over those drop issues that I talked about with Marquise Brown as well, and just getting back to playing the style of football that A.J. Brown plays. Because when he's at the top of his game, he is a dominant force and very similar to a DK Metcalf level player where he can be a force in the deep passing game as well as run after catch. He's one of the most physically imposing wide receivers in space and hardest guys to bring down with just one tackler. And then finally here, this is one that I think you're going to be able to get. This is probably the cheapest wide receiver 1 in my eyes that you can go out and buy right now. That's Allen Robinson. At the moment, A-Rob is not producing anywhere close to wide receiver 1 numbers. His production has been very disappointing to start the 2021 season. That is not his fault. The plays he's making, the receptions he's making, I wonder how he even has the stats that he has at this point because the play around him has been so poor. Andy Dalton is not a vertical passing quarterback. He is a flick it out in the flats, short intermediate passing game, very, very safe with the football quarterback. Now, Andy Dalton does still throw interceptions, but he's a lot less aggressive downfield, rather, is the point I'm trying to make here. Justin Fields comes in. I'm finally singing his praises. This Bears offense, the ceiling should take off. 9 sacks taken by Justin Fields here in week 3. That is a result of what Myles Garrett had 4.5 or 5 sacks. Jadeveon Clowney was in there as well. This Bears offensive line cannot pass block, and they certainly cannot defend an elite pass rushing team like the Cleveland Browns. And the play calling was also atrocious. I mean, they're having Justin Fields do deep drops in the pocket, and when you're talking about an offense that you're seeing clearly cannot meet the expectations man for man that the Browns are throwing at you, why are you still trying to do 5-step drops in the pocket? That caused things to just steamroll and go terribly wrong for Chicago this week. And as a result, 6 targets, 2 receptions, 27 yards against the Browns. And again, the catches A-Rob had were very impressive, and just what he did to fight and scrap for the yards he got was very impressive to me. If A-Rob can produce as a top 12 fantasy receiver with Mitchell Trubisky the last 2 seasons, there is no reason that once this offense clicks and finds its groove, which it eventually will because the schedule lightens up and gets a bit easier here down the stretch. That's the main focus and the main point I'm going to make here, is that Allen Robinson should be absolutely capable of getting back to. Now, he probably won't finish as a top 12 wide receiver because his ceiling isn't elite per se. It's more of a floor value that we like to see out of him, and that's something that he's going to have to trend back towards here in the next few weeks or so. And with these first 3 down performances in weeks 1 through 3, it's going to be really hard for him to make up for that lost time. But at the end of the day, he's got Detroit coming up. That's a battered secondary. Las Vegas, another secondary that's very easily exploitable. Green Bay, if you can manipulate your matchups and get Jair Alexander off Allen Robinson, that left side of the defense is very, very easy to pick apart. And then Tampa Bay, who's been getting passed all over for the first 4 weeks. Now, they are going to have to stand up and block those Tampa Bay pass rushers, but those are the next 4 opponents for the Chicago Bears. So if you can get, hopefully Andy Dalton is not ready to go for week 4. And they don't give, because if he's healthy, they're going to start him. That's the vibe that I'm getting from Matt Nagy, who looks like an absolute dunce, clowning himself at the press conference podium every week. But if Justin Fields is the starter next week, I think he takes a major step forward. He was 6 of 20 passing this week because, again, he was literally getting obliterated the second he caught the football and tried to drop into, his passing progressions. This Bears offense can only go up from here. They have bottomed out. They've hit 0. It's trending upwards. The arrow can only point up. So Allen Robinson, typically one of fantasy's best wide receivers. The talent is absolutely there, and it's there at the quarterback position as well. They got to draw up better plays for him, scheme him the football, and get the hands in their playmakers. Get the ball in the hands of their playmakers. Because right now they're not doing that, and that's why they're getting smacked. So A-Rob, go out there. The asking price for Allen Robinson should be crazy low right now. You can go out there and find yourself potentially one of the safest floor options in fantasy once this train gets rolling for that Bears offense. All right, those were 5 wide receivers to buy for week 4 NFL action here. There are certainly a variety of other names out there. Henry Ruggs is a player I'm super interested in going out and making offers for. He has made some really impressive plays here over the course of the past 2 weeks now, among others that I think would be excellent trade targets. So if you've got situations in your leagues where being offered trades or want to offer someone a trade, let me know and I'll get back to you as soon as I can and give you the advice to try and pull off the trade that nets you the best value in return for the rest of this fantasy football season. So thank you all so much for watching today's video. I will see you guys tomorrow. Also, make sure to go check out some of the other episodes I posted today, including 5 must-buy running backs, as well as 5 must-add players off the waiver wire for this week. And then I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.